Hello, my name is Bob Pickard. I'm the host of ITV Japan's marketing program. I'm also the president of Edelman Japan KK. Today, the media and the marketing business are together in a period of evolutionary and some say revolutionary change. Today we have, for the very first time on this program, a journalist who's on the front lines of the media business. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Kenji Hall, who's the correspondent here in Tokyo for BusinessWeek. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Kenji, tell me first and tell our viewers, what is BusinessWeek? Tell us about your organization, about your property.
BusinessWeek is a business magazine that comes out weekly. We print about 1 million copies a week. We also have a fairly extensive online version.
Yes.
We deal with anything related to business. It could be, an issue about math as it relates to the internet business. It could be, about a company's earnings. It's really free-for-all when it comes to business.
Now, is BusinessWeek primarily a U.S.-focused publication, or has it become more global, more international over time?
That's a good question. It should become more global.
Yes.
I think you're seeing a lot more cover stories that are dealing with issues that are global. But in the final analysis, it still is fairly U.S.-centric. I think you'll find about 80% of the content in the magazine is U.S.-related.
I see.
Now, when it comes to the online version, it's very different. We have 2 international channels, the Asia channel and the Europe channel, and those deal specifically with those regions' news. So, and we get a lot of good traffic, I think. The numbers are rising, and we're getting more readers than we ever got when we had 2 paper versions, the Europe version and the Asia version. So, I think it's evolving, and that, we'll see more global stories gradually.
Where does BusinessWeek's future lie, do you think? Is it as a print business magazine, a weekly, or is it as a web platform that always grows, always evolves, always changes on a real-time basis?
I think the future is the web, no question about it. The paper version, if you look at the advertising revenues that come in, they have been falling very rapidly for the paper version.
Right.
A couple of years ago, we made a concerted effort to switch to an online platform, or at least to bolster the online platform. That has helped buffer the rapid decline in revenues from the paper side, but it hasn't quite made up for it, and I wonder if it ever will. And yet, that it's still the future because revenues are climbing, and the readership is actually expanding as a result of our putting a lot of resources into the online side. So.
Okay, well, a lot of people have said that sort of the advertising-supported media is in decline, but the subscription-based media is rising. But I guess BusinessWeek is both of those things, isn't it?
It is. It is. The paper side is still subscription-based. The online side is all free content, and I think that's how you'll find most media. That's the direction you'll find most media going in. I think an interesting story to look at is the Wall Street Journal. And what Rupert Murdoch wants to do with the Wall Street Journal, because the Wall Street Journal is one of the few subscription-based models for media. It's very successful, and yet you wonder if they made all that content free and simply had advertisers come in and make up for that, wouldn't that bring in much more revenue because you'd have more readers overall. So it's. I mean, I think the jury is still out, and we won't know for many, many years.
There's kind of a debate going on, isn't there? You mentioned Murdoch, but this really does speak to the infotainment rise out there, where news seems to be becoming more celebrity-focused, more ephemeral, kind of shallow. I still think people pay for quality, for the in-depth analysis, but nobody has time anymore. So I wonder if that's a shrinking market.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there. We are, as I've said before in past conversations, we are in the entertainment business. Our stories are just like products. We have to sell them. And a good story, has certain elements, and I don't know if you want me to talk about that now, but
definitely, yeah, I'd like to hear. I mean, what makes for a good news story? What are the ingredients that you're looking for, that your readers are looking for?
Yeah, if you notice a lot of stories, well, at Business Week,
right,
we're moving toward a lot of people profile stories. Those are the ones that tend to sell the best, to be perfectly honest. People want to know how a top executive deals with a problem. They want to know the background of that person. They want to know the quirks of that person. So those are generally the best stories. You also have stories that have a lot of tension, plaintiff versus defendant, company versus company. Those also, that kind of confrontation is great for a story. In our case, as a foreign correspondent, I have to make a story palatable for U.S. readers. And I know our audience is global, but our main audience is in the United States. And so it comes down to filtering out the noise, making sure that I have a story that our U.S. readers will understand or can relate to or can learn from. I think those are the main elements of a good story. There's also, for the magazine at least, you have different media. You have the newswires.
Sure.
You have newspapers.
Right.
You have magazines.
Different dynamic for each, right?
Very different. The newswires, obviously, quick hit, spot news stories. The newspapers, analysis on top of that. I think the magazine's role is the narrative. And so if you can really tell, you can go behind the scenes, take the reader inside the boardroom, take the reader back to those meetings a year ago when they were planning for a particular product, go over the debates, tell about all the challenges that they faced, and step by step how they went about tackling those. That's kind of the way to tell a good story, I think.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm in the media relations business. In fact, that's how we first met. And what sells and what doesn't for news? I think fear sells. And we have something we call the 3 C's. What causes news? C, color. C, contrast. C, I would say, confrontation. So all of these things together make good news. So if you want to get the attention of a journalist like yourself, you have to sort of meet that need. You have to provide these 3 C's. But if you don't want your news to attract you, if it's bad news or if somebody's made a mistake, you try to avoid those things.
Yes, I agree with that. I find it very hard to figure out what works in pitching stories to people like me, because I tend to reject the idea that a story comes in a fully wrapped package.
Right.
So often what will happen is a PR person will contact me with a story idea, and I'll come back with an alternative idea. That dialogue is how generally I like to work with PR folks.
Well, that's the future too. I mean, in the old days, we were told to take the complexity of a company, simplify it into some kind of easy-to-repeat message, and then relentlessly repeat it through multiple communications channels, including our interactions with journalists.
Right.
No chance for feedback, no dialogue. And the credibility came